I'm taking a breath while I turn my mic on. Take a breath with me. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Center for Spiritual Living Morristown. We are doing our live streaming celebration this morning from the center on Facebook Live. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from. Same if you're watching on YouTube Live or later. We're glad you're with us. The theme for the year is 2020 Vision. And the theme of the month, as you may have learned last week, is Facing the Fear. The topic today is Where Faith Begins. And we're really blessed to have some amazing music with us. James Brough, song and piano, and Rich McClusky on drums and then some. And we have with us today our beloved practitioner, Gail Belluardo, who will bless you with some of her deep wisdom. So stay tuned. Last week, I invited you to think about fear as a blessing, as a messenger, as a teacher, until it turns to faith. And we can start really small, and that's what we'll learn about. Remember, faith of a mustard seed is all we need. So the thing is, we all must grow in faith. I don't think anybody wants to grow in fear, but we must grow in faith to make the world a better place for everyone. So that's what I want to talk about today. My name is Frankie Timmers, and I'm the spiritual director here at Center for Spiritual Living Morristown. And I would love for you to check out our website, cslmorristown.org, to see what's happening and what we're all about. And maybe you feel moved to give and support this center, so you can do that as well. If you are on Facebook, share this with someone. Start a watch party. Use the bubbles. Make a comment. Say hello to each other. Ask some questions that we can answer in the future. Let us know what's going on with you. We love to hear from you. So, my talk today, Where Faith Begins. I want you to think about this idea of faith and fear being on this opposite spectrum of the same idea. And so last week, when I talked about fear being a messenger, a teacher, a blessing, a gift, instead of something to fear even more, so it goes underground and it affects us in ways that we don't want. So fear can then be the exact place where you pivot towards faith. When we are fully present with fear, instead of avoiding it, judging it, criticizing it, wanting to get rid of it, we can simply be with it, be in it, listen for its message, and choose to pivot into the direction of deeper faith. So, for example, you might receive a letter from the IRS that you didn't expect, or you might have a cop car behind you with sirens, or you might have a diagnosis. All those things that happen tend to trigger fear, right? It's like, oh my goodness, what's going on? What happened? And a lot of time, those are moments we don't pay attention because it's the fight or flight syndrome that kicks in. And so the most important moment in that instance, that experience, is to simply just be present and notice. I'm finding more and more that when I'm present in it and I notice, I start laughing. I go, "Hey, Frankie, what you doing, girl?" Ernest Holmes says, fear is just misplaced faith. Fear is just a useless use of faith. And so it is our mind that's misaligned. And that's the messenger. So we get to get curious and become more aware of what's happening inside of us and what wants to happen. Because as we teach in our beautiful teaching, is what the master teacher Jesus taught over and over and over again. It is done unto you as you believe. Because we're always using this universal law that it is responding to our thinking and feeling nature. It creates for us what we give it in body, mind, and heart. And so I know now that my consciousness creates my reality. I think most of you know this. Your consciousness creates your reality in theory, right? It's not as easy in practice. And it's not just about me or about you. It's not just about us as a community. It's about the whole world now. If our consciousness creates our reality, we might not want to deal with our own personal fears, but we must for the entire planet. So when there's fear, and you can tell, you just notice, you feel it in your body, right? Just pause. Just take a breath. Once you notice it, take a moment and turn to the faith that is already within you. Because you don't have to buy it, get it, earn it, take another class for it. It is already within you. It's the truth that is already within you. Ernest Holmes says, faith is an affirmative mental approach to reality. So we pause and we breathe and we start small. Just start small. Maybe for you, it's that you think of a mustard seed. You make room then to think about what's happening, what wants to be healed. Personally, I've been incredibly distressed and hurting around all the fires out west. It just breaks my heart. I can't wrap my mind around it. I can't imagine what it's like. My heart goes out to so many people, some of them colleagues, friends, acquaintances. And so those are moments that we have to pause and just breathe and make room so we can turn to our faith. When you feel like giving up, that's a moment to pause and go to that place within that already knows what faith is. When think looks the worst, when you get bad news, when you're uncertain. I mean, isn't uncertainty the flavor of the day? It always has been, but now it's more clear with COVID. When something is crumbling or everything is crumbling around you, that's or around us, that's when we want to, instead of run and do stuff, is just take a moment, take a pause. And to remember that fear is of this world, that fear is of the humanness, fear is of the ego, and fear is a messenger about deepening our faith. Because faith is of our spirit, of our essence, of our true nature. Fear says, I got to figure out how to control all this. Faith says, I simply have to surrender and let spirit move through me. Fear says, my will shall be done. But faith says, thy will be done. And thy is not outside. Thy is our higher nature. So faith can open us and grow us. I know there is a universal law that responds to everything and that I can use it. I know I am love in form and that it heals. I love using the example of Mother Nature. I can feel that the weather is changing and that we're moving into fall. It's not going to be winter, right? It's not going to be spring, right? James, you think it's going to be spring? No, it's going to be fall. That is utterly predictable. We can rely on that with our faith. Same that the sun shall rise and set every single day. That can be our mustard seed in trusting the law. Spiritually, We have a profound responsibility right now to stand in our faith, to know these principles work, and to work them to the best of our ability so that we outgrow that which has been limiting us and causing us suffering, and so that we arrive at that deeper conviction. That's why spiritual practices are really not just about 10 or 20 minutes a day. Spiritual practices are about all day long, knowing that you will forget, and that that moment of forgetting is where faith can begin again by means of our spiritual practices. I am in love with a section in the Science of Mind textbook I haven't read in a while. So I'm going to ask you to grab your Science of Mind textbook or purchase one or go online or do your Kindle. The pages are different, but it's under the section of mental equivalence and it's under the section of the prayer of faith. And that's on page 283. And that entire page, 283 and 284, is brilliant. So I'm going to read just a little section. Faith is real to the one who experiences it and cannot be denied to the mind of the one who has proven it. And what is this faith we should have? We should have faith that there is but one mind, capital O, capital M. There's but one mind. This mind is both the mind of human and the mind of God. We use the mind of God since there is but one mind. We use the mind. This mind is the essence of creativeness and the essence of goodness. It's available to all. It is no respecter of persons since it has already incarnated through all. It is in all and through all. Faith will not be denied and will not take no for an and will take no not take no for an answer. I'm so excited. It will not take no for an answer. It speaks in affirmative language. Faith knows that the universe is a spiritual system, that we are part of this spiritual system. It knows that our environment is also part of this system because the system is perfect. The condition may become perfect and would be perfect if it were known to be so. Faith knows that the life of each of us is God, the birthless and deathless reality of all being. And now we get to have one of James's originals.
Faith is not hope, it's reconviction. And conviction's not dreaming of some far-off land. Faith is right now and it has a plan to get ready for the job at hand. Faith is not blind, it takes vision and the insight to know at the core who you are. It takes strong intuition to be in position when it's time to catch a falling star. Yes, we need to be strong and to move when the right time comes along. And there's work to be done to prepare for your place in the sun. Faith is much more than religion, not some dusty old promise that fell from above. It's here and it's now, it's a personal vow to pursue and do the things you love. Faith that we do all we can do to see it through. Yes, and faith is the key. Open your eyes and begin to be free. Faith doesn't always seem perfect. It takes courage to learn from mistakes. Oh, but you have the power to heal heartaches. A little faith is all it takes. All you need is the faith of a mustard seed. It's amazing what happens when one believes. If you're willing to follow your internal guide, you'll be happy to know that it can't be denied. Faith inspires the soul and the will to start. With our feet in the water, the sea will part. Faith can heal and repair any broken heart. This is faith. This is faith. This is faith.
Well, that was just lovely. Thank you so much, James. Written by James Brough, and we have Rich McClusky on drums, and it's even more than drums. It's so beautiful. So I'm really thrilled that we have somebody back that you may not have seen in a while. She's a treasure. She's a beautiful soul. She's got deep wisdom, and she's going to bless us now with a short talk. And then she'll close with a spiritual mind treatment, and then I will come back and say goodbye to all of you. So let's welcome Gail Belluardo.
Wow, it's so great to be back here in the sanctuary, assisting with you. And I just love this service because faith is something that we all could use more of. And what I found is that if you haven't noticed the world lately, we're kind of almost in a petri dish of fear, one way or another. And it's our challenge. It's really our challenge to manage that fear and to bring ourselves back into faith. And we can't do that if we're not conscious. And so one of the things I love about this teaching is it teaches you to use your conscious mind, to be able to work with yourself as an individualized expression of God. And I have an example of how I wound up doing that for myself. Not an easy thing, but it really has taken me to a deeper understanding of myself, and I learned something new about myself. So one of the things I learned about this teaching is that there's always something more to discover about yourself and about how you can move forward on your path, on your spiritual and human path. So many of you know me as a practitioner. I don't know, other people may not know that I am also a psychotherapist. And so I deal with the human as well as the divine, which we do in our daily lives anyway, but I do that in my practices as well. So the example I would like to give is one that was a very big challenge for me. And the challenge was that I had been in a group with other colleagues of mine, and we had been working on a project. We worked very hard on the project, everybody gave their best, and I was an integral part of that. I had certain skills that were valued. And then what happened was the project ended, and there was time for a new project. Except that I wasn't ready for a new project. I was ready to let go of the work that I was doing in this particular way. Now, what happened to me was that it's not easy for me to say, I don't want to do this anymore. So I couldn't admit it to myself, and I really went into conflict. I couldn't decide, and I began to lose faith in myself that I could make a good decision for myself, because it involved other people. And if you know in your life, you're involved with other people, so there are decisions that you have to make that involve other people. So I really went into anxiety. And anxiety is simply one way that fear shows up. And the fear showed up in my life. I became confused, I was indecisive, I felt preoccupied, and it was very difficult for me to come to a settlement within myself about my decision. And, I'm somebody who worries about disappointing other people and putting my needs ahead of the needs of other people. So that's one of the things that I work with myself. And the other thing that I know that in psychoanalytic theory, there's a concept called the ego ideal. And the ego ideal is part of the human part of us, which is the standard that we hold ourselves to. So we all have standards for ourselves. And my high standard for myself was that when I make a commitment, I don't waver. I'm responsible, I do it, and I follow through. But what happened was I wasn't aware of how I could make a decision because I was in conflict. And so I'm not a quitter, I give everything my all, and what happened was I really lost my sense of integrity. And one of the things I learned about myself is that integrity is probably the most important thing to me in my life as a value. So the emotions that I felt were fear, guilt, anger, loss, and a denial of really what I wanted and what was best for me, just me as an individual. And I'm reminded that in the Science of Mind textbook, which aside from the great reading that Reverend Frankie gave and that page that she gave you, I highly recommend reading the entire chapter on faith. And Ernest Holmes says, in order to have faith, we must have a conviction that all is well. And the place I was in at that time, I was not feeling that all was well. And the other thing was, what Ernest Holmes says is that faith is built up from belief, awareness, and trust. So I had lost some belief in myself. I certainly wasn't accepting the situation I was in, the condition I was in, and I also had lost trust in myself. So it was a dilemma for me. And like all people, we have dilemmas and we need to solve them. So I realized that I had not only been in separation from myself now, I became in separation from God. And that's really not a place I like to be. That's very stressful for me. So one of the other quotes that I will quote from this chapter from page 161 is, we should be careful not to divide our mental house against itself. So I was truly in division within myself. And I had to get myself back into that integrity and that wholeness of myself, because I also had lost faith not only in God, but in the fact that God is the guidance of my life. And then I remembered that in our teaching, we really, really believe that sometimes we need to let go of something in order to allow something new to emerge in the right and perfect timing. And that really calmed me down. Speaking about my fight or flight was really going at this time. And I calmed down, and I brought myself back to myself, within myself, and I got honest. I prayed for clarity about what was the right decision for me, and I knew the decision. And one of the things that helps me always when I'm anxious is to remember, God is, I am. So I'd like you to do that with me. On the in-breath, I invite you to just think the phrase, or say the phrase if you like, God is. God is. Out-breath, I am. And that just resets my entire being when I do that. And in addition to that, I remind myself that I always breathe the breath of God. So then I know that my divine support is there, and I'm not left floundering by myself with decisions that are hard to make. So then I was able to reconcile the conflict within myself and regained my integrity. And the realization that came out of this, I knew integrity was important to me before, but what I realize now is integrity is crucial to my well-being, my mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. So I keep that now in my awareness, that I need to be mindful if I start to feel out of integrity. And, you know, I'm just one person. Everybody has their own values, has their own ideals that they try to live up to. So my invitation to you is to consider over the next week, when does your faith become vulnerable to fear? And really give that some thought. And sometimes it'll just be a bodily reaction of tension, but when you listen in, you will get the answer. And then I invite you to begin thinking about, what do you need to do to reconnect with and restore the faith that is already in you? So now I would like to close with a spiritual mind treatment, our word for affirmative prayer. So if you like, I invite you to close your eyes and know this with me. I know that there is only one presence in the universe. That presence is God. That presence is perfect just as it is. That perfect source and substance that is the very life of every entity on this planet and beyond is always guiding, protecting, guarding, inspiring, bringing light and love and faith and goodness. Because there is abundance beyond our wildest imaginations that God has in store for us. And so I open myself up to knowing my connection with God. I open myself up to knowing how deeply and profoundly I am unified with the source of life itself. And in this way, any fear or tension in my body dissolves, and I am in complete harmony and unity with all that is. And then as I know that I am always in unity with all that is, I know there's no separation between myself or anyone else. And so I speak this word this morning on behalf of each one of us for that divine essence within us that we have access to. I know that each one of us is an individualized expression of the one with access to everything that God has and God is. And in knowing this, I know that whatever fears or worries or concerns or angers or guilt or anything that we have simply dissolves into that knowing of absolute, perfect, unconditional divine love that holds us, that supports us, that guides us and guards us. And in this way, I know that each one of us is working on our own self-mastery. And in attending to what comes our way, we are empowered to address whatever circumstance or situation presents itself to us, knowing that we are grounded in faith, we are grounded in the truth of our divine inheritance. And so I know that right here, right now, each one of us feels that divine inheritance within us and lives with the clarity that each one of us is unified with God and has access to everything we could ever desire. And so I am just truly grateful and exhilarated to speak this word, to know this truth, and to be in communion in this way, in this new way, with everyone. And so I release this word with universal, absolute joy and appreciation into the law of life itself. And I know truly beyond a shadow of a doubt that since it has been spoken, it truly is already done. And so it is. Amen.
Well, she knocked my socks off. Just thinking, when my faith becomes vulnerable to fear, that's so powerful a statement. I'm so grateful for Gail because she inspires me every time. She brings wisdom and powerful treatments. So hope you're soaking it all up. So thank you for joining us, for checking us out on the website, for listening to our live stream productions, for opening yourself up to be part of our spiritual community. We have a brand new class starting with a brand new teacher for us that we haven't had in a while anyway. Reverend Janice Bolera will be teaching a new Centers for Spiritual Living class called Revealing Wholeness. revealing wholeness in these evolving times. And it starts on Wednesday evenings, September 30th. It's a 7-week class. She's offering a day class, provided there are enough students as well, on Thursday mornings. And this Tuesday night, she's doing a free sampler class. So if you're on our email list, you will have received the Zoom link. If you're on our Facebook pages, or if you hear about us on YouTube and you want to get that link, just email us at office@cslmorristown.org and we're happy to share it with you. On Wednesday nights, until that date, until September 30th, I am doing something called the Art of Spiritual Living. And it's an opportunity to come together with people from spiritual community beyond ours to take this topic today, where fear begins, a little bit deeper into more of a workshop experience, and an opportunity for those of you who are participating to talk to each other about what works and what doesn't work so well. So it's a great way to have community. So thank you for joining us. We're grateful to our volunteers. We're grateful to all of you, grateful to Gail, grateful to James and Rich as they play us out. Have a beautiful day. Know you're loved.